A man that knew loss. Loss of a hand, loss of a sister, loss of self. Tachibana was a half-breed, his parents being a Japanese man and a Chinese woman. For this he was discriminated against and forced to become strong in order to survive. But over time he learned that there was more to life than just having a pulse. He needed more to make it worthwhile, and even though he ended up dying to ensure her safety, his love for his sister made him truly feel alive. Kiryu met the 25-year-old real estate tycoon on the rainy streets of Kamurocho right after he had been exiled from the Dojima family. Dejected and without direction, Kiryu fell to his knees in the middle of the street. A man holding an umbrella approached him, offering him a gloved hand before inviting him up into his penthouse to speak further. There, Kiryu would find out that Tachibana knew a good deal about him. After letting him shower and offering him food, Tachibana explains how Kazama was connected to the grander scheme of things. That if any of the three LTs get that empty lot, they will be able to remove Kazama from his position, which neither he nor Kiryu want to happen. He wishes to have the lot for himself, wanting to work with Kiryu to make that happen. Kiryu leaves, not yet ready to work with him, but he does take his business card with him before doing so. Through some street-level detective work, Kiryu finds out just how capable Tachibana and his real estate firm really are. They are going toe-to-toe with the Tojo clan in nearly every opportunity and coming out on top. Be it bribery, blackmail, or violence, they've gained a solid foothold in the city. Kiryu eventually meets Tachibana's second command, a man named Oda, who shows off the darker side of how the firm operates, though there are hints that Oda has done some of the work in a less than ideal manner for Tachibana's tastes. The next on-screen appearance of the cyborg is after Oda tests Kiryu in a fight. Tachibana couldn't bring Kiryu into the fold unless his second command trusted him. Trust and secrecy are things vital to his operations. He's earned the trust of the locals in the Champion District through helping keep the Tojo out. Overall, Tachibana is a splotch of gray in a largely black-soaked region of the city. Now that Kiryu can be trusted, Tachibana is willing to spill all of his beans, and this man's got the British diet level of beans to share. Turns out that Kazama predicted everything that's happened the last few days to Kiryu, his partnership with Tachibana being an insurance plan of sorts, as well as a way to work towards a larger goal that is still unknown to the one-handed real estate agent. During this entire process, Tachi helps Kiryu to get an idea of how much power he currently holds in an overdramatic fashion.
金は力。私は自分の力がこの先どこまで登場界に迫れるか試してみたい。ですがまだまだでしてね。今の私ではせいぜい10秒というところが限界ですが、いずれは殻の一粒を手に入れてカムロ町の支配者層に食い込むつもりです。あの土地はそれだけの価値を生みます。あんたは一体。
With everything he's seen, Kiryu decides to finally get legal employment and joins up with the real estate firm. Tachi has Kiryu go off to work with Oda on a job. Some rival squatter situation is fucking with an ally of theirs. The dude is paying the firm to deal with the problem. Unfortunately, it's all connected to the Yakuza. They hired this man to extort money out of the old dude that both owns and manages the building. Kiryu deals with the Yakuza, which has ramifications down the line, namely the scene where Owano showed up to Serena and busted Nishiki's face into the bar. During that confrontation, Owano did guess that Kazama is behind the Tachi situation, and that Tachibana still hadn't found the owner of the empty lot. Kiryu refuses to give up Tachi. Owano fucks off before Oda suspects that Kiryu might agree to the deal and sell out Tachi, calling him to tell him to go into hiding. Oda really is just a cunt, isn't he? While on his way home to get some shut-eye after getting into more fistfights than the frat boy from Boston during St. Patrick's Day, he heads on over to the empty lot to ruminate. Unfortunately, there's a cyborg waiting for him there to trap him into a cutscene. In it, Tachi explains that he didn't think the Dojima family would move this fast. He still believes that the situation is manageable, though. It's manageable in the same way that a bar during a major holiday is. You're surrounded by hostile forces on all sides, and you gotta shout orders and hope that they get carried out without too many messes being made. The next time Tachibana is brought up is when Iwano tries to bribe Kiryu with a fat stack of cash. But since I'm part of a real estate empire with myself as the president of it, I have no need for Iwano's broke bitch dollars. He doesn't like this and shoots a woman to death, something that Kiryu doesn't consider be very cash money, but doesn't seem to give enough of a shit to pick a fight with the golf-playing prick. Tachi next makes a grand appearance by crashing his car through Kuze, showing that even Ubermenches can suck ass at things. He's there as the second worst getaway driver that Kiryu has during the game, and as his kidneys begin to fail him, the first worst getaway driver shows up in a shitty van to spirit the two away. Before that, though, they have a conversation about how, like I said, he's having issues relaying orders due to being surrounded by enemies on all sides. Kiryu finally realizes that he needs to let his friends help him, and that this protagonist mindset he has won't get him too far, since the story is no longer just a fun beat-em-up. He's had to fight a middle-aged man in the sewers. Dignity and honor are no longer on the menu. 86 that shit. Tachi, meanwhile, advocates being a sociopath and manipulates and uses those around you because of the environment he grew up in. The grind set that he has today is rooted in a horrible upbringing. Still, though, the polite pugilist expresses a desire to have friends like Kiryu, showing signs that he, too, could have been a standard protagonist if he'd only been shown love and not massive kidney failure induced by blood loss. He knows that he can trust Kiryu with his life, even if he himself is still too distant to be willing to risk his own life. Kiryu is rubbing off on him, and I don't mean the kind that involves being stuck on a passenger train surrounded by salarymen that don't know how the tender touch of a woman. But as Oda ruins both his eventual demise and the tender moment, we are then whisked away to Little Asia, which at this moment just feels like Chinatown, but with a different name. I think we only meet Chinese immigrants there. While Tachibana recovers in a back alley doctor's bed, our favorite human trafficker explains why Tachi can no longer give two-handed employments. They both ran in a gang. Tachi got ambushed, which left his hand so fucked up they had to remove it. Like a coward, he didn't keep his bones to turn into a cool necklace, however, so point reduction from his badass rank for that. Imagine keeping your skeletal hand as a necklace. That'd be dope as shit and send only the right messages during high society business meetings. Because of his injuries and blood loss, his kidneys work about as well as a nepo baby in any real job, and because of that, he's actually a vampire that needs blood every couple of days. See, he's a cyborg that drinks blood to stay alive. His tattoo of a bat is especially fitting. After negotiations with the city's oldest Chinese man go less than stellar, our second favorite half-breed vampire, second only because Alucard is considerably more fuckable, shows up to explain that the ancient man will not change his mind and that they gotta get the fuck out of there. Tachibana suggests that Kiryu goes and become a hobo to survive away from the Dojima family's blood hunt, having had his apartment firebombed by some goons not too long ago. Kiryu agrees to be homeless and they part ways. After he stays the night, and in the process beats the fuck out of some teenagers that hunt hobos for fun, Kiryu is picked up by his worst getaway driver so that he can drive him somewhere cryptic. Thankfully, it's not long before it's revealed to be Tojo Clan's HQ, a big, fuck-off, traditional-looking building that over the series, Kiryu will have to fight his way through multiple times. Hopefully the groundskeepers are paid well for how often they gotta clean up blood and broken statues. Tachi is working the case of, does Kiryu get to live unmolested by Sohei Dojima? And in doing so, we learn that the acting second chairman of the clan admires Kiryu's Kazuma-like qualities. Playing into this, Tachi offers a billion yen, 30% of his business profits, and another billion once it's proven that Dojima has been brought to heel to call off the blood hunt. He explained that on top of Dojima ending up in control of the Tojo clan being a bad thing, Kiryu is indeed worth enough money to bludgeon an entire room's worth of men to death with. Of course, at this point, I've been making over 1 billion yen every time I made a collections run for all the properties I manage, which is another point of conflict between story and gameplay. Like, no matter how much money Nico Bellic gets in GTA 4, the story still acts like he and Roman are in dire straits and need to keep the story going as is. But the deal is made, and on their way out, an unspoken agreement must be fulfilled. Kiryu, Tachi, and Fuckface must prove that they are indeed worth keeping alive. Weak allies are not worth keeping. And in proving themselves, they beat their way through the HQ and back to the rinky-dink van before leaving as the man in the chair talks about how badass Kiryu might one day become.
Kiryu Kazuma ka. あの風間が目をかけただけのことはある。あれもいつか化ける男なのかもしれねえな。
The terrible trio hang out at the pier, where Tachi stares wistfully at the ocean before explaining that somebody has found the location of the empty lot owner ahead of them. They need to move fast to beat out Shibusawa, the pencil-pushing Yakuza. Seeing as how he's a vampire and needs blood every 2 days, he's gonna send the city's worst getaway driver and Kiryu off to go collect the owner. Before the mission, though, they drop off Kiryu in town so that he can go eat entire menus worth of food for completion points, which the game insists upon shorting to CP and like, maybe don't do that? Maybe don't say things like, you've earned more CP from side activities. Cyberpunk, don't fucking abbreviate that either. Well, I'm on my own bullshit right now. How about don't abbreviate the sole survivor to SS either? Once Kiryu is full of That was a Freudian slip. Once Kiryu is full of food, stray cash, and the ability to run longer, he gets the mission brief from Tachi about how the owner of the lot is named Makamura Makoto, a certain young blind woman that has been through enough hell to get a return customer bonus. She's currently in the hands of an ally, but that advantage will only last so long since Sonbori is the Omi Alliance's territory, and while it's one thing to fuck with the Tojo on their own turf, it's not the best idea to piss off yet another crime syndicate. Once in Sonbori, Oda shoots some hot lore dumps all over Kiryu's face. Namely that Tachi and he were in a gang a little while ago, and that's because of that gang activity that Tachi lost his hand. Kiryu eventually needs to babysit a phone alongside a former member of that gang. He runs a porn shop, but has a secret call room in the back. Kinda reminds me of a certain cyberpunk book, and it's room that no sound can escape from. But it's not nearly as cool as that. It's likely just used by gooners that pay extra to beat their meat into submission in the comfort of a cool side secret room. While in the masturbatorium, the two chat about the good old days when Tachi was gang leader. Turns out that he wasn't always the leader. He beat the fuck out of Oda to win that position, which made Oda's boner grow 3 sizes that day out of the love for this half-breed that can push his shit in harder than any other man he's ever met. Tachi growing up having to turn to crime to live apparently made him more badass than a human trafficker, which is why Oda insists that he leads their piss boy squad of delinquents. Oda returns and tries to downplay his raging erection for Tachi, but that doesn't matter. They get the girl from Sarah, who is holding her in safe captivity, with Sarah telling them to give Tachibana his regards before heading off. While on the highway, the trio are ambushed by the pencil-pushing Yakuza and his army of armed men, some with afros. Kiryu decides to kill like 30 men in the span of a few minutes or so, once again proving that Kiryu has never killed anybody ever. They then take shelter in some under-construction building, where Oda treats Makoto like a 50s housewife, which Kiryu, famed lover of women and their rights, doesn't abide by. This culminates in the reveal that Oda is a massive piece of shit who sold her into sexual slavery. Thankfully, Makoto got to stab the fucker. Shibusawa's men catch up back to them. Oda says that he'll hold them off and to tell Tachibana that he's secretly gay as fuck for him. While I do love homosexual love, I do not love the murder of innocent women for the sake of keeping up pining after your boss. So I'm glad that he gets ventilated, and from what I've read, Kiryu has a few nice words for the man decades later, while still holding Tachibana up in high esteem. You shouldn't have engaged in slavery, Oda! Kiryu and Makoto end up in a gaudy hotel, one that shows off the style of the era, style over substance, as the two talk about things. How Tachibana has changed since she last saw him a decade ago. How she had been in Osaka, Sonbori being a district in it, because he had said that's where he was going. But now he's a 25-year-old real estate, empire-building, handicapped vampire, and she's a blind former sex slave masseuse. So, they've both changed a lot in the previous decade. Reminds me of how I've changed in the last decade. Hell, I've changed multiple times even. When my birth giver died in 2016, that was the first major one. And then when my old man died in 2023, that changed me too. Like the siblings, I don't think I've changed for the better, but I've tried to do what I can despite how much I've had to endure. Like, two of my parents, their mother killed herself. She couldn't handle trying to live in a foreign land, speaking a foreign language. This left Makoto alone, to fend for herself, and she ended up running off to try and find her brother. In her desire to be reunited with her brother, she tried to meet with as many people that spoke Chinese as she could. This naivete for a young woman in a major city, to go with men on her own, eventually led to Oda, who would go on to sell her not a year less than when he and Tachibana would meet. The circumstances of all of this are unlikely, but the very human causes of all these problems stick with me. She's unfortunately a woman stuck in a story about the world of violent men. While she eventually will try and have some agency, she's a vision-impaired woman that can't bench press a tiger. Her resolve, though, to be with her brother and eventually avenge him, everybody can understand that. Kiryu helps her, tells her that life in the dark can be hard, but he can help her make the first steps. She steals her resolve to meet with her brother, something that I can't even force myself to do in the real world. He dumps her off with the hobo he stayed the night with. Tachi can't be reached at the moment, and he takes off to try and find him. Turns out that his whack-ass kidneys acted up again, and he needed the good suck to stay alive. So he's hooked up to his vampire machines when Kiryu meets with him again. The man apologizes for not being reachable before realizing that Oda let some beans out in the form of Makoto's connection to Tachibana. Kiryu explains what went down. Tachi assumes Oda is dead, and at no point does Kiryu explain that Oda wanted to make out with Tachi sloppy style. Like, Kiryu and Makoto, he blames himself for this mess, and the people that have gotten hurt in the process. And the worst part is, he's not even the wrongest kinda. Like, the empty lot, that's not his fault. Fleeing China to become a criminal in Japan and in the process leaving behind his mother and sister, yeah, that kinda is his fault. Tachi goes on about how being a half-breed made members of both groups hate him. So instead of a cool bonus to charisma like a half-elf would get, he instead got saliva all over him and his sister whenever they'd go to the theater in China. The other moviegoers just spitting thick loogies all over them as soon as the lights went out. He had reached a point of nihilism, of despair, in the criminal underworld of Japan. Not even a raging homo to fight alongside him was enough to make him desire life's bullshit. But hearing that his sister and mother had come to Japan, his lust for life came back as he wanted to be there for his little sister, and at that point, non-dead mother. Unfortunately, by the time that he tracked his grandpa down, the old geezer was dead, along with his mother, leaving just Makoto to try and find. He needed to find her, not just because of his love for her, but because of the dangers associated with the empty lot that she was bequeathed in their grandfather's will. With this in mind, he approached Kazama, who was more than willing to work with him. Dojima, at the head of the clan, with all the power and wealth promoting the plot and being able to be the chief influencer of the project to build a big fuck-off skyscraper there, would become a monster that would cause the Tojo to collapse in on itself. Kazuma told him to get into real estate using the information network he formed as part of his search for his sister. This would allow the firm to have a stronger legal claim over the empty lot than the Dojima family ever could. Kiryu finally puts two and two together, realizing this means that the entire real estate business was Kazama's plotting. I have read that in Japan, restating shit that people say helps show that you're paying attention, which is partially why all the snakes from Metal Gear do this, but it also helps the audience understand things if they were, say, preventing suicide over text while trying to pay attention to the game. I'll be playing a cutscene here because it's just too good not to. There's so much here that I can feel just as he can.
ただ、妹は家族を捨てた私を恨んでいるかもしれません。数日前、セルさんから妹は目が見えないと知らされたとき、私は兄と名乗らない方がいいと思いました。
今はそう思っていないってことか。
あなたが私に聞かせてくれた牧村誠という女性はやはり私が記憶する妹でした。彼女が蒼天堀にいた理由も私を探すためだった。ずっとこんな私を探してくれていたんです。
立花、
桐生さん、私は妹にシャオちゃんに会いたいです。今の私はそのためだけに生きながらえています。もう二度と逃げたくありません。
もうすぐ会える。彼女はあんたを恨んでなんかいねえ。だが今もあんたの助けが必要だ。
I've known little more than loss in my life. I was placed into CPS because of my caregiver's inability to function as a human being. The day that she died, I did not feel as he did upon learning of his own mother's death. It was a mix of relief that she could never directly harm me again, through either trying to blackmail me or through her choices reflecting poorly on me, but also relief that her suffering was over. In the same manner that when my old man died, one of the few things my uncle could muster to say was that at least his suffering was over. Like her, he died a drug addict that sold himself for money to afford his addictions. Addictions that his parents refused to acknowledge. Like Tachi, I was separated from my family members, one by one, but out of choice on my part to not watch them slowly kill themselves. When he said that meeting his sister again, calling her by her Chinese name, how that's the only reason he's hung on for so long, I get it. I understand it. In my life, I prevented the suicides, thus far, of 147 people. I'm good at it because I know what it's like to not have much, if anything, to live for. But I stay alive because I have a few people that I care about. Nothing else in life is worth tolerating the pain that life brings. Love is the only reason to keep going. That love grows more precious with each death, each separation. I'm doing this project out of the love for the idea of my old man. Despite everything that he did, there are timelines that could have existed where we had a lasting parent and child relationship. But between his inability to accept responsibility and my standing up for myself, finally, it never worked out. The two eventually end up contending with an assassin from China, who puts 2 rounds into Kiryu. Tachi realizes that this is the man that killed the dude in the empty lot, the murder that Kiryu was framed for. Tachibana threatens to kill himself if the man doesn't let Kiryu live. Since he's only paid to bring in Tachi alive, the two leave while Kiryu is left to recover in the care of the local Chinese until eventually waking up and speaking with the elder. The old fart explains more backstory, that the reason the plot of land even exists is that the grandfather had sold off all his other surrounding land after World War II so that his daughter might one day find him and somehow, via knowing about the land, Anyway, it's because of the grandpa that all of this ended up happening in a bout of dramatic irony. Life sure just fucks you over sometimes. All he wanted to do was be reunited with his daughter, but ended up causing her to kill herself, his granddaughter to get sold into sexual slavery as well as getting shot, and then his grandson ending up getting tortured and killed, all because one middle-aged man wanted more wealth and power. After reading it back to myself, I'm like, man, yeah, the family went through a lot of shit. Chen does point this out, that it's the Yakuza who directly caused most of this to happen, and as they're speaking, Tachi's likely getting worked over by the Dojima family, who are known for their expertise in torture. Sort of like the Legion in Skyrim, it's one of the first hints of their inner darkness, being the torture chambers. Chen wishes to mobilize against the Dojima, but knows that if he does so, little Asia would be tolerated no longer. Kiryu promises to be he and his people's champion, to be the one to bring fire and war to the Dojima family. Chen is happy and tells him to go babysit Makoto until they can locate Tachi for Kiryu to rescue. He's getting his shit wrecked, namely his digits, as the weasel tries to get him to talk via pain. But Tachi is truly built different, and the loss of toes is not enough to make him give in to some cunt that only signed up because he likes to hurt people. He pokes at Kuze that he's gonna be seen as a fuck-up if he doesn't get the info. The weasel needs to be told by Kuze not to kill him since they can't extract info out of a dead man. Wise for Kuze to understand. Maybe not so wise to say out loud as Tachi eggs the cunt to hit him once more. This time with the sledgehammer that has claimed more tootsies than a kid on Halloween. Tachi can only let out a pained laugh after ensuring that he'd never have to talk. Kiryu and Nishiki break in right after this, and after duking it out ape style with the help of a shotgun because fuck Kuze's use of lackeys. Tachibana has the last conversation of his life with Kiryu before succumbing to his injuries. And yet again, here is the whole cutscene because I can't not show it.
Tachibana, すまね。遅くなった。
謝ることありませんよ。桐生さん。
おい、橘。よせ。妹がすぐそこまで来てるんだ。ずっと会いたかったんだろう。今連れてきてやる。錦頼む。誠をここに。分かった。橘。
桐生さん。ラオグよ。操ってるのは堂島宗平です。
なんだと。
クゼが言ってました。すべての人は堂島が引いています。風間さんを排除するためにあなたに殺しの濡れ衣
を。おい、橘。なんだ
こんなことにこ
んな。橘。お前の妹は必ず俺が守る。約束する。絶対に守るからな。
Tachibana was a man that grew up in pain and misery, who hardened himself against it, and in the end, died for the sister that he loved more than anything else. The sister that gave his life meaning. He and Kiryu both taught each other much. His handling of Yakuza politics, his ability to keep going despite everything, his morality, to an extent, enforcement of it, it spurs Kiryu on, and he grows to embody many of those skills and traits. Without the death of Tachibana, most of the series could not have happened. His death and the impact it had on Kiryu would one day cause a series of dominoes to fall, resulting in the dissolution of not just the Tojo clan, but also the Omi alliance. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a story for another dragon-adjacent man to experience likely 3 years from now after I catch up on the rest of these games. Which, good time to say, I might skip 3 through 5. I know 3 might get the Kiwami treatment, though. If it does, I'll play, but I'm still on the fence since I don't want to endure the least polished games. Anyway, with that, I will conclude the section on our favorite half-breed vampire real estate agent that is also a cyborg. If you can find me another one, please do. It's a very narrow category, and I love to see what there is out there this guy is such a very narrow... There's nobody like him.